G'day guys and welcome back to Supercoach with DR. Today we're going to have a quick look at the top 10 highest priced players that we can select in our midfields for Supercoach 2020. So we start off with Jack Mccrae, Lachie Neale, Nat Fyfe, Josh Kelly, Paddy Crypts, Josh Dunkley, Tommy Mitchell, Paddy Dangerfield, Marcus Banton, Pelle and Adam Treloar. So 5 of these players had career best years last year. We had Lachie Neale with an average of 121.3. His second highest averaging season was back in 2016 where he had 112.6 average. Josh Kelly, highest averaging year at 117.4, up from 114.3 back in 2017. Josh Dunkley, 116.5, big jump from 2018 from 95.1. Marcus Bontempelli to 114.7, up from 107.7 back in 2016. And Adam Treloar went up by about 4 points on his 2018 average and bumped that up to 113.4, which was great for him. So, look, who do I like out of the top 10? I really like them all, to be honest. As we know, they're all terrific players. We'll start off with Jack Mccrae, someone who I think's an absolute gun, huge ceiling, number 1 for average possessions last year. He spends most of his time in the midfield. We've seen what he's done over the past couple of years, and he's someone that you can select with absolutely no worries whatsoever. The only thing that may put you off is his price tag, but as we know, you get what you pay for with Jack Mccrae, and he's an absolute Supercoach gun. He's a Supercoach beast. Lachie Neale, so you know my man love for this guy. Number 2 for clearances last year, number 4 for contested possessions, number 5 for total disposals. He actually had the best disposal efficiency in the top 10 as well, going to almost 79%, albeit that he likes to handball a lot, rather than kick. And I may have some bias here, but for me, this guy's another no-brainer that you can really lock into your side. To be honest, I think, the first 6 selections there in Mccrae, Neale, Fyfe, Kelly, Crypts and Dunkley, you could almost throw the darts at a dartboard and whichever 4 it lands on, then go for it. The only 2 that I'd be worried about starting together in my initial side would be Fyfe and Kelly, just due to their durability issues. So there's also been a little bit of news coming out of WA that Fyfe may be actually playing more forward to prolong his career. But look, we know what he's done in the past. We know what he's capable of. He's actually a terrific forward as well. I really think that if he played full-time forward, he'd kick at least 50 goals a year. He's shown that he can be really, really damaging up there with, his great contested marking, overhead mark and knack for goal. Look, the umpires seem to love him but hate him at the same time. He's right up there for total frees for and total frees against. But look, he's someone that you can select pretty safely, I think, but probably don't bank on him playing for the full season. It's the same with Josh Kelly. For me, he basically ticks every box, apart from one, which is obviously his durability. He only played the 15 games in 2018 and the 14 games last year in 2019. But as we know, this guy's got talent to burn, arguably the most, talented player that we have in the AFL system. But I don't think we've seen the best of him yet because he just hasn't got consistency in his body. So if you can get on the park for, close to 20 games a season, then he'll be a terrific pick, and I think he's only going to get better, Josh Kelly. Paddy Crypts, just select him, Last year, he spent almost 90% time on ground, which is huge for a midfielder. His shoulders must be sore because he really has carried that side for the last couple of years. Number 2 in contested possessions. I think the good thing for Paddy is that Carlton are a team on the rise, and they're getting some better players around him, so it should ease the burden a little bit on him. Again, like Fyfe, he was right up there for frees for and frees against, so that sort of seems to balance out. But as I said, in short, just pick him, get him into your side, and you should be really, rewarded with that. Next one we'll have a look at there is Josh Dunkley. Big fan of Dunkley. One of my first selections this year. He was actually 10th overall last year for contested possessions, but I think that would have been higher if he had to spend, more time in the midfield, particularly during that first quarter of the season. Look, he's young. He'll only improve. He trains his butt off. He trained his butt off in the preseason, training with some of the world's best athletes. As I said, he's one of the first players that I selected. He won't be leaving my side, I don't think. And look, I was hoping for him to be a little bit of a pod this year, but it seems like he's a pretty popular pick so far, but for good reason. I thought that people may stay away from him due to losing that DPP status up forward, being only a pure midfielder now. But I think, his numbers speak for himself, particularly in that second half of the season with Dunkley. So, yeah, absolute gun Dunkley, and someone that I've got on my side. Tommy Mitchell, we know he's a Supercoach pig, but I won't be selecting him. I've got a rule about not picking players, with injury clouds, and he's actually said himself that he's actually going to take a cautious approach towards his recovery, and he's certainly not going to rush anything. So, look, I think Tommy will obviously work his way into the season. He's probably an upgrade target for me, but I think we need to monitor, his first quarter to half of the season before we make a decision on Tommy Mitchell. Obviously coming back from that horrific broken leg. Danger, Kane Corns is best, mate. It's a bit of a wait and see from me. I'm not starting him. As I said, I'm focusing more on the up and comers, such as your Dunkleys and those players that I think are really coming into their prime. I certainly am not saying in any way, shape, or form that the game's gone past Paddy. He had a terrific year last year, and he's a champion, a Supercoach champion. But as I said, he's getting a little bit older for me now. I'm not sure, if he might, maybe similar to Fife, spending a little bit more time up forward. And like we said with Fife, that's not necessarily, a bad thing because he can be really damaging up forward as well there. But for me, I'm not going to be starting with Paddy Dangerfield this year. Now, Marcus Banton Pelle, it's almost a tale of, the good and the bad. The bad was his goal accuracy last year. 15 goals, 27 behinds. I suppose the good is that he had a fair few shots on goal. So if he can fix up that accuracy and get it even closer to 50%. If he had done that last year, then his average would have been even higher than what it was. He's number 13 for turnovers, which isn't a great thing. But on the other hand, he's number 6 for metres gained. He'd be probably my third preference out of the three doggies that we see there. But I think that you can safely have all of them in your side. I definitely wouldn't start with all of them because you've got to think ahead to the buys, and I haven't even looked that far ahead. But given the fact that 3 of your starting midfielders would be guaranteed out during that week, and I'd assume that there'd be 1 or 2 more of your premiums possibly that would have that same buy, and I certainly wouldn't start with them. But I think it's a little bit of a myth to say that players steal too many points off each other, because as you can see here, we've got 3 players from the same team that have finished in the top 9 for averages. So, look, I think he's a decent pick, Bont, but I won't be selecting him to start off with. I'm much more keen on Dunkley and Mccrae. Treloar, I think he was number 2 for total possessions last year. I may be making that up, but I think he was. Look, I think he's started to fix up his disposal a little bit. I think he'll be a pod this year. There has been, a little bit of talk about sharing points with players like, your Adams, your Pendles and co going through there. But as we just talked about before, the Dogs, that may be a little bit of a myth. I'm staying away from Treloar. I selected him a couple of years ago, really expecting him to take a giant step forward and, possibly push, in the top 4 for averages. But for one reason or another, that didn't happen. He gets enough of the ball, but I don't think he always makes terrific decisions, and we've talked about his disposal efficiency there isn't terrific. So if he can improve on that, then I think he could be, a really good pick. So who do I think may be able to rise into the top 10? I've got 3 players, and I won't talk, a heap about them, but we've got Clayton Oliver, who I think is actually really underpriced for what he can do. We've seen what he's done in the past with some really high averages. Melbourne as a team had a terrible year last year. I think Oliver was still certainly one of their better players, but like his mates, he just had a bit of a down year. Not a terrible year by any stretch of the imagination, but I think for his standards and what we've seen him do in the previous couple of years, we know that he can take it to the next level. So I think he'd be actually a really decent starting pick, because I think that he'll actually finish in the top 10, Oliver, and he's actually not priced in the top 10 highest priced players, so there's certainly some value there. Tim Kelly. Geez, I've got a lot of question marks about him, but I think he'd be a terrific scorer as well. Obviously going over to the Eagles now, finds himself back in WA. They'll be a scary team next year with the additions of Kelly, and hopefully for the Eagles' sake, a fully fit Nick Nat. But look, I don't know what he's going to do. I think it could go either way, Kelly. Look, I don't think that he'll score terribly. I still think he'll be a really good scorer. How high will his ceiling be? I'm not too sure, but definitely one to keep a watch of. But probably for me, with a few of the unknowns there, he'd be someone that I'd monitor. Probably wouldn't start with, but if it looks like he's killing it and, really, really going well, then he's someone that I'll probably look to get into my side at some stage of the year. And the other one I've got there is Matty Crouch. So, similar to Mitchell, a disposal pig. The thing with Matty Crouch is he loves to handball the ball a lot, and when he does kick it, he doesn't tend to kick long. He tends to, do those little dinky kicks, sideways, forwards, backwards, and doesn't get a lot of meters gained. But, he gets those contested possessions, gets those clearances, and I think he's someone that, again, last year had a bit of a down year, but I think he can really improve on what he did last year. So the other point I'll quickly make is I'll quickly talk about the top 10 averaging players in 2018. So we had Mccrae, Danger, Crypts and Fife as the top 4. They obviously continued that form in 2019 and finished in the top 10 again. Oliver was 5th. We had Lockie Neal coming in at 6, who again finished in that. Cogs at 7. Gaff, Josh Kelly, who again found himself in that top 10 in 2019 for averages, and Elliot Yeo. Look, there's just a bit of discussion, guys, about what I think about the top 10 premium selections. I may have, said some stuff that you already know and some pretty obvious stuff. May have raised some points that maybe you didn't think of. But certainly, please add to the discussion down below in the comments. Let me know which of these guys that you're starting with. At this stage, I have Lockie Neal, Josh Kelly, Paddy Crypts, and Josh Dunkley in my side. I'd love to get Jack Mccrae in there. And I probably, to be honest, should have him ahead of Neal. But as I said, I love Lockie Neal, and I probably have a little bit of bias. It'll probably be one out of those two. For me, I'm definitely going with Paddy Crypts and Josh Dunkley. Josh Kelly, I really want to start with. Look, his injuries history worries me a little bit, but I just think he's that talented. And if he can get his body right, then he's got a huge ceiling and could, really push for that top 2 highest averages for the season. So, hope the planning's going well, guys. Good luck with everything. Whack some comments down below on who you think may rise up, who you think may fall, and let us know which midfielders you're starting with this year. As I said, I'm starting with 4. In my original side, I was starting with 5, but I found that made my defence and my forwards a little bit lighter on. So, I may convert back to that 5th midfielder. I'm not exactly sure at the moment, but at this stage I'm going with the 4. So take care. Anyway, guys, next video I'll be back looking at the top 10 highest price forwards. Take care. I'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye.